You are tuned in to the Gift of Gab podcast, a podcast where we are intentionally growing, accepting, and becoming the best version of ourselves. We focus on all things healing, wellness, spirituality, self-development, and bettering our relationship with ourselves and others. In every episode, we'll be reflecting on lessons learned through past experiences, setting goals, and helping each other reach our fullest potential. I am your host, Gabrielle Ariana, and welcome to this week's episode. Hello, you guys. Welcome back to the Gift of Gab podcast. I'm your host, Gabrielle Ariana, and hope you guys are having a great day today. An amazing month, a beautiful remainder of the year. But yeah, I hope you guys are doing great. Today's going to be a very special episode because today will be our mid-season finale type of deal. I'm just going to take a little break from posting on my podcast and give myself some time to just kind of reflect, relax, relate, release, of course, rest, and be even more intentional on the second half of the season. So yeah, we're going to make this 10 a good one, and then we're going to be talking about something that obviously correlates with previous things we talked about, but mainly something that was mentioned in our first episode, which was becoming, but we're going to be talking about unbecoming in this episode. So I'm excited, you guys. It's literally my 10th episode, and I've actually can say that I've put out 10 consecutive episodes on my podcast. I stuck to it, was consistent, diligent, and disciplined to keep going, keep striving towards this and podcast and investing in it. So I'm really proud of myself and I'm happy. So I'm giving myself my virtual flowers through this podcast episode. So it's exciting, and I thank everyone who's been listening. Honestly, you guys are amazing, so I'm very grateful to everyone. And just life and God. And so that's my little spiel. Anywho, let's get right into it. But today I did want to talk about unbecoming. So there's a lot of things that I have been unbecoming, and I've been unlearning and just shedding away from myself, or shedding off of me. So I have to use like analogies and metaphors and things. So you kind of think of like a snake. They shed their skin, and essentially it allows them to grow bigger. Or I would say like grow wiser, because you kind of learn something in that process, but you're shedding off a layer of you that obviously doesn't serve you, that you have outgrown, and then because you've shed that layer of skin, if you've grown bigger or wiser, you're now being exposed to different environments and things that are aligned with who you are and this new person that you have become. But essentially, to get to that point, you have to unbecome a lot of things. So let's talk about unbecoming. And I think for me, it's been more about just like unlearning different habits, traits, and really like my thought process and my mindset of my initial thought process when it comes to like approaching certain things, and my initial mindset that I have been literally operating in for like the entirety of my life up until like the last 2 years, where I've been very intentional on like how I maneuver and things like that. But it just made me realize that part of becoming someone different and someone greater, and just becoming this person that I envision myself being, and becoming the person that I want to be out of life, I have to unbecome a lot of things. And I think it's like to say like, oh, I'm becoming this person, or I'm striving towards this goal or plan in life, is like a lot to do. It's a big shoe to fill, but no one really talks about I don't want to say negative, but if you were to put becoming and unbecoming in positive and negative categories, I would categorize becoming as something positive and unbecoming as something negative. So you're essentially unbecoming anything negative that's just not servicing you, and that's not aligned with who you are right now and who you're striving towards being. And I think that I find a lot of people talk about like, oh, I work so hard to be this person, or to do this thing, or to reach this goal, but no one talks about like the negative ways of which that the negative things that you had to endure or unlearn or unbecome really, 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 really impact you. Most people say like, oh, I became more disciplined, I became more consistent, I became more diligent, etc. All these positive traits and things that it takes to be whoever it is that you're striving towards being in life, and to attain any goal or plan that you set aside for yourself. But no one's saying, well, I had to unbecome someone who's been lazy, procrastinated, always talk negatively towards myself, or didn't really know my worth and value, and I had to unbecome someone who treated people this type of way or allowed people to treat me this type of way, and all those things is what took me to be this person that I am. But more so, people glorify the positive traits, and so that's why everyone, when it comes to like telling a success story or just a story in general about your life and what traits it took you to be the person that you are, they're only highlighting the glorifying ones. They're only highlighting these grandiose traits and characteristics that it's like everyone that says in the same story is, I'm disciplined, I have self-control, and I'm being very consistent, I'm being persistent, I work hard, which that is something I don't really even align with as a definition of like wanting to be someone who works hard. I want to be someone who works smart. But I wanted to specifically highlight and talk about the negative things that you have to unbecome to become the person that are all those things, because there's nothing wrong with being all those things. It's beautiful to be those things, but I feel like it's just as beautiful to have at some point in your journey be the thing that was actually kind of derailing you or prolonging you reaching whatever heights and attaining whatever goals or plans or this person that you are obviously striving towards being. And for me, it's heavily been, habits. What is my daily routines looking like? And I'm not like a strict routine type of person, but lately I've been heavily reflecting on the fact that having some sort of routine that is allowing me to get, the things that I have set aside for myself done in some capacity is better than not having one at all and just kind of doing things randomly, which is kind of how I have been operating, because that's just how my brain is. Just like, it's a lot happening at the same time. So I just kind of, I remember doing this. Okay, I'm gonna do it. And I know there's certain things that I have in my forefront that I'm obviously consistently thinking about. My podcast being one of them. That's the one thing that I'm always like, okay, I have to record for my podcast. I have to edit, and I have to do this, and this. But I know for a fact that I'm not giving 100% like I know I could be, right? And that's because there's still traits that I'm still now, like, you have to unbecome the type of person that just kind of goes with the flow a little bit too much. Sometimes it's good to still plan a little bit. And I don't know which one of my episodes that I talked about kind of like planning and how that was something that I kind of stopped doing, but I used to actually be a planner. I used to plan everything down to the T. I used to plan my life, other people's lives, me with them and them with me, and whatever goals they had, we're gonna figure out together how we're gonna get them done. And until I realized, like, girl, you can't plan every little thing, because life's gonna life and you don't know how life's gonna life. So just kind of be someone that kind of goes with the flow. And I've been going with the flow a little bit too much. I would definitely tell someone like, hey, go with the flow, go with the ease and allow flow, but do take control of your life in the areas and times in which you feel like, if I don't take control right now, this is not going to get done. Because again, of course, God's going to move in your life. God is going to move you in your life and move other people for you in your life. However, there is still times in which you use your discernment and your own personal judgment, like, this is a task that God has given me to do, and versus me trying to wait around and think that and just say like, oh, God's going to figure it out, and use someone else as a vessel. That can sometimes prolong your journey or prolong, you reaching that goal or that height for yourself. And so in a sense, this is really like holding yourself accountable and acting and taking actions on things, of course. And there's going to be times in which you do that and you realize like, maybe I didn't need to do it. But again, that's just a lesson that's being learned. But however, it's better to do a little bit of something than to do nothing at all and just wait around. And so that's definitely a habit that I noticed that I've kind of been heavily influencing me, because I've been like, oh, I'm just going to go with the flow. I'm going with ease, and I don't want to plan too much because I don't want to get disappointed when my plans that I created or this picture that I created don't turn out being what I thought it was going to be. And I'm just realizing like, this is me out loud holding myself accountable. Like, that's not working out. So obviously I have full faith in God and myself, but I also know that I have to do whatever it is that I can. That's essentially what I'm saying. Do whatever it is you can to the best of your abilities. But this is only tailored to someone who's like super like, I'm going with the flow and I'm just with ease and I'm just kind of flowing, because that's beautiful to be going with the flow in life, obviously. But sometimes, you have to take some actions yourself for things to get done instead of allowing things to kind of flow to you. Sometimes you kind of have to meet it halfway. And that's essentially what I'm saying is, what are things in your life that you can meet halfway versus just sitting around waiting for it to come to you? Because it may take you meeting it halfway for it to finally get to you quicker than what you thought it would. And I'm definitely learning that. So I've become the person that just kind of goes with the flow blindly. Let me say it that way. So I go with the flow, but just not blindly, and just kind of have a expectancy that everything's just going to come to me. And yeah, so like different traits and stuff like that. So thought patterns, mindset. I'm actually reading this book that I mentioned last episode. It's called The Artist's Way. And, in that book, it's pretty much helped me become more creative, not more creative, but tap into my creativity, but also like just, reflect on certain things in life. It touches on a lot of stuff more than just creativity and art. Reading that book has, really been like an eye opener for me and allowed me to really help transition my mindset, because that's something that I know for sure I have to unbecome a person operating in the type of mindset that I have been operating in for a vast majority of my life. And that is like scarcity, that is lack, that is worry, that is always feeling like I have to be the person to do everything and get things done. That's just hyper independence. Again, as though I could say I'm someone who like allows flow, but I'm also kind of like, I know there's a part of me that still feel like if I don't do something, it's not going to get done, or if I'm not the direct source of something, then it's not going to happen for me. And I know that's not the truth. That's not a fact. So I've been unbecoming a person to operate in a mindset of all those things. And it's very challenging, especially when you are pretty much like, it's just kind of just you, and you don't really have much people that you can rely on, and you don't really have much to kind of support you in a sense. And so it's challenging to not operate in that type of mindset of like kind of worrying all the time of where things are going to come from or how things are going to happen, when that's literally all you've ever known. And so that's why this episode is very important to me, because I feel like a lot of people are unbecoming a lot of things, or they don't realize there's so many things that they have already become, so that they've grown so accustomed to and so blind to that they can reflect and say, this is actually really like not servicing me. And I think a good example would be hard work, right? Because that's very common. A lot of people say, oh, I work hard, or if you like haven't gotten somewhere, they'll say you're not working hard enough. And most people don't realize that, to say confidently that they work hard or they're a hard worker, it's not really hard work. It's more so them being motivated by the fact that they just don't want to struggle, the fact that they've only ever had to do everything on their own. They're motivated by the fact that they don't have help, they don't have a sense of community, they don't have a sense of stability because of their circumstances and because of their upbringing. They don't trust that other people can get things done for them, or they've only ever had to do things on their own, so that hyper independence. A lot of people that I have met and know personally that are like, oh, hard work, they're not hardworking on purpose. They're hardworking by force. Like they were forced to have to work hard. And to be honest speaking, that's a lot of, people of color. They're forced to have to work super hard and go 10 times harder because of the circumstances that was placed upon us, and the systematic things that have been placed upon us to make us have to be that type of person, to have to do those things and to operate in a scarcity mindset. Because even so, being a hard worker, it's kind of like you're combative of the fact that, oh, I have a scarcity mindset, I have a fear lack mindset that it's not going to work out, or something's going to fail, or I have to get this, I have to hustle, because if I don't, who's going to do it, how I'm going to get it. And so you kind of create that and make that your persona. You make that like a glorifying trait to have, or something. But really, what is the root of to why you are operating in that space? And so I had to really reflect for myself, is like, what is the root of why I operate in the space of right now, like really, really just wanting to go with the flow and consistently thinking about things not going right, or I have to be the source of everything, because if I'm not the source, then I don't know where it's going to come from. If I'm not the source, then it's never going to happen. What is driving me? What is really motivating me to operate in that space? In the sense of being someone who have worked so hard for the past 10 years, consistently, consecutively in different areas at the same time. What motivated me to be that type of person? It was my upbringing. It was the way that I was raised. It was the fact that I didn't have stability growing up. It was the fact that I never had people to rely on. It was the fact that I never had a sense of community, stability, security, in every area you could think of. Never had people that I could really trust for real. So I always had to do it on my own. I always had to wear every single hat for myself and for other people. But I chose to do that. And I chose to be in the state of always planning every single thing, because if I didn't know what was going to happen next, that scared me. So if the point where I got to like, okay, I don't need to know everything that's happening next. I don't need to plan everything, because everything that I've planned hasn't even turned out how I thought it was going to turn out. It may have happened in some ways, but it didn't turn out exactly how I thought it was. And so that made me disappointed or discouraged. So now I'm in a state of flow and ease and allowing things to happen for me. And granted, things have been happening for me. I have been flowing in numerous of different ways and been aligned with so many different things because of that. However, I know there's still things that I can be doing myself. And so I just kind of reflected and got to this revelation of like, what is really motivating me? And I feel like when it comes to unbecoming certain traits or certain, habits that you have inhibited, or, mindsets that you operate in, is what is motivating you, or what did motivate you, even if it was a long time ago, like as a child, for you to continuously, act this way, think this way, and operate in this way. Because granted, being consistent and being persistent, being, a hard worker, if that's what you like, is, glorifying, and it's a great, trait to have, and discipline and self-control. Those are all great things, but even good things and good traits like that can be, motivated by something negative that you've already become, and that you've grown so accustomed to it that you're blindly, all these things, or you're motivated to be these things. In a sense, you don't want to be motivated to be, disciplined or have self-control, or even have like faith in God because of something negative, kind of like, you're hovering over you, or really like pressing a button towards you to make you want to do something. You want to be doing it with good intentions, with purity, and with a positive type of, lens, a positive mindset, nothing like fearful in a sense. So like when I say that is, I was so motivated to succeed and to have gone to college, graduated, get the job, get the place, get a car, all these things, and really be so independent, because I was motivated by the fact that growing up, all of those things was taboo with my family. It was just taboo in my community, and it was literally predetermined and written that I would not have done all those things. So I was motivated by the fact that I lacked all these things, stability and security. I'm so motivated to be secure and stable, but if you're not secure and stable within yourself, internally, or within your mind and how you operate that, then are you really stable, and are you really secure? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's pretty much where I kind of, been at in life, is really reflecting on, there may be some things that I have become on this process of just growing, accepting, and becoming, this person I'm striving towards being. But I also want to be mindful of what is motivating me to be all these things. And if it's something that is of a negative background, or started in a negative way, it's not to say that you can then transition that perspective and say, hey, now it's positive. But you want to be mindful of what is the root, what's the foundation that you are now pretty much laying out for yourself and you're standing on, because that foundation is important. Because if you are striving towards being all these things, but you haven't unbecome the things that motivated you in a negative way to be these things, then you kind of have like a rocky foundation, and it's going to eventually stumble when you least expect it. And I want to be someone that kind of get a hold of something like that prior to, I've reached different heights and attained different things out of life. So that's pretty much what I'm going to take some time off and do, is really reflect and just kind of spend some time with myself, and, see what are the things that I may glorify as a trait that I say that I have, or what type of flow am I in when it comes to life that is probably positive, but I'm being motivated in a negative way, or I'm being motivated in a fearful way, where it's like a fear of something, being stripped away from me. And that's been something that I've definitely been operating in majority of my life, is like fear of like, oh, this is going to be gone. Like I have a hard time being in the same place at the same time for a long time, because I've only ever known moving around, bouncing around from different places. So it's like a fearful little mindset of like, oh my God, it's going to be taken away from me at any moment. So I'm kind of scared, and I don't really get too comfortable in a sense. And that's what different areas, that's what that I could apply to different things in my life too. So whether it's relationships, friendships, jobs, etc., housing, like all types of things. And so that's something that I've noticed like early on at the onset of kind of being very intentional with my, healing, growing, and just my self journey in life, like the last 2 years, or 3 years. I feel like the last 3 years has been very like, okay, this is something you definitely need to like work on and figure out how to get a hold of it, and make sure it's not impacting you in a negative way, but can be perceived in a positive way. I don't really know how to explain that, but yeah, I think it's just about, you want to break things down into its simplest form and evaluate if it aligns with you and if it is something that is motivating you in a way that is positive, because I want things to only positively motivate me. I don't want it to be a fear or negativity, or because I've once experienced something so dramatic then I'm now motivated to get the complete opposite of it because I've experienced a negative side of this thing, So just kind of looking at yourself in the mirror, and you gotta just face whatever it is that's worth facing and be very honest with yourself. I think being very honest with yourself is important, because if I'm being honest with you guys right now, everything that I just said is like literally like from the heart, from the dome, because I did not pre-write any of these things. None of my episodes I do, but like it's just kind of coming and it's just kind of flowing out my mouth. So yeah, what are the things that you have to unbecome that you already became and didn't realize probably may in the long run affect you? And that's essentially what it is about for me. Is there's some things that I've become that are great, but if I've already become this thing and I've become it from a space of something negative or fear, eventually it's gonna, that's not a good foundation. That's not a stern, solid foundation. And you don't want to continue to operate in that type of space or operate in that type of way and continue to just become this thing and kind of grow like the snake I said, and shed the skin and become wiser and grow bigger in it. And then eventually later on, you realize, damn, that's actually not servicing me because of the intent behind why I'm so motivated to be this type of person or be this type of way or to think this way or operate in this space. So, it's probably for someone to hear. I'm not sure who, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. I pray that these next 3 weeks for you guys are a beautiful one. You guys really sit and reflect with yourselves and be honest with yourself. Look yourself in the mirror, like literally, physically, but internally as well. And yeah, just stay prayed up and continue to grow, accept, and become someone greater, better, wiser, but also unbecome anything that is not servicing you. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Gift of Gab podcast. Be sure to follow us on all social media platforms at @thegiftofgab_pod. I will speak to you all next week. Thank you guys so much. Continue to grow, accept, and become someone greater than you are now.